Step out of the vehicle, now.
Officer, may I ask why I'm being stopped?
This car came back flagged. Don't ask questions.
I'm a federal judge, Angela Whitaker. My identification is right here.
Turn around. Hands behind your back.
There is no legal basis for this arrest.
Stop resisting.
Bright midday sunlight floods the frame as the patrol car's dashcam activates. The image warps slightly at the edges, a familiar distortion from the wide-angle lens, while the center remains locked onto a late-model sedan pulled onto the shoulder of a suburban roadway. Wind noise brushes against the microphone. Cars pass by at steady speed, some slowing, curious, others oblivious. The stop is open, exposed, impossible to hide from public view. A black woman stands beside the driver's door, documents held calmly in her hands. She is composed, professional, deliberate in every movement. Her posture is upright, shoulders squared, eyes steady. This is Judge Angela Whitaker, a sitting federal judge, mid-40s, known throughout legal circles for her precision, fairness, and unshakable commitment to constitutional law. She is dressed not in robes, but in formal civilian attire, tailored blazer, neutral tones, understated authority. Nothing about her suggests panic. Nothing about her suggests guilt. The officer steps closer than necessary. The body cam captures the imbalance immediately. His presence blocks her path back to the car. His voice is clipped, commanding, impatient. Step out of the vehicle. Now. Judge Whitaker does not raise her voice. She does not argue. Her tone is measured. Officer, may I ask why I'm being stopped? The question hangs in the air. Wind rattles the nearby trees. A truck horn blares somewhere behind them. This car came back flagged. The officer snaps. Don't ask questions. Judge Whitaker nods slightly, as if absorbing information rather than reacting to it. She raises the documents just enough to be visible. I'm a federal judge. Angela Whitaker. My identification is right here. The officer does not take it. Instead, he shifts his stance. His shoulders tighten. His voice rises. Turn around. Hands behind your back. The body cam picks up a faint distortion as his volume increases. Judge Whitaker remains still. There is no legal basis for this arrest, she says calmly. Not defiantly. Factually. Stop resisting. She isn't resisting. She hasn't moved. Passing vehicles slow further now. A few drivers glance over. One car nearly stops before continuing on. The judge's wrists are pulled back. Metal clicks shut. The sound is sharp, final, unmistakable. The officer's breathing becomes audible through the mic. This moment, captured from multiple angles, will later be described by legal experts as a textbook example of racial profiling unfolding in real time. But right now, it is simply happening. Judge Angela Whitaker stands cuffed on the roadside, under a clear blue sky, in full public view, while the law she has spent her life defending is being ignored entirely. And the cameras are recording everything. The patrol car door opens with a sharp mechanical sound, cutting through the steady hum of traffic. Judge Angela Whitaker is guided toward the cruiser, not rushed, not dragged, but firmly controlled. The body cam captures every detail. The tight grip on her arm, the brief shadow crossing her face as she passes the open door, the subtle tightening of her jaw. She does not protest. She does not plead. Years in courtrooms have taught her something most people never learn. How quickly power shifts, and how dangerous it is to react emotionally when authority is already being misused. As she is placed in the back seat, the camera angle changes. The world becomes framed by glass and metal. Outside, sunlight reflects harshly off passing cars. Inside, the audio dulls slightly, isolating her from the open road where this should never have escalated. Judge Angela Whitaker is not new to the justice system. She is not unfamiliar with police encounters, legal thresholds, or constitutional limits. She has spent decades interpreting them. Raised in a working-class household, she was taught early that the law could either protect you or ignore you, depending on who you were and how it was applied. Education was her escape and her weapon. Law school followed. Then years of grueling work as a federal prosecutor, where she built a reputation for preparation, restraint, and integrity. Later, private practice. And finally, the federal bench. She did not arrive there by accident. Colleagues describe her as meticulous, unemotional in the courtroom, but deeply principled. She is known for listening longer than she speaks, for asking questions that expose weak foundations. Police misconduct cases pass through her courtroom regularly. She has ruled against officers before. She has ruled for them too, when the facts supported it. Fairness has always mattered more to her than optics, which is why this moment is so jarring. From the back of the patrol car, she can still see her vehicle through the window. Her own documents sit untouched. Her identification, capable of ending this instantly, remains unread. The officer does not return to verify anything. Instead, he paces, radios and fragments of information, his posture rigid, defensive. Outside, the scene grows heavier. A few pedestrians slow their steps. A driver pulls over briefly, pretending to check a phone. The flashing lights reflect off nearby windows, drawing attention that cannot be undone. This is no longer just a traffic stop. It is a public detention. Judge Whitaker speaks again, her voice calm but firm, projecting clarity even through the barrier of glass. There is no cause for this. I've identified myself. Please verify. No response. The body cam captures the officer's breathing. Short. Controlled. The kind that comes not from fear, but from certainty. The certainty that he is in control. That his authority is absolute. Inside the cruiser, Judge Whitaker stares forward, not at him, not at the cameras, but at the reality forming around her. She understands something crucial now. This is no misunderstanding. This is assumption. And assumption, when backed by a badge and unchecked confidence, becomes something far more dangerous. What she does not yet know is that this stop, this quiet suburban roadside encounter, will soon pull back layers of behavior, history, and negligence that the department has spent years ignoring. Nor does she know that witnesses are already watching, or that phones are coming out, or that this moment will soon leave the street and enter courtrooms, newsrooms, and national conversations. For now, she sits in silence, hands cuffed, while the system she serves fails her in the most visible way possible. The officer's name will matter later. Right now, on the body cam footage, what matters is his posture. He stands near the patrol car with one hand resting close to his belt, eyes scanning the street, jaw set. He moves with the confidence of someone who believes the situation is under control, someone who believes they are right. He has been on the force long enough to trust his instincts, long enough to stop questioning them. From his perspective, this is routine. A vehicle flagged, a driver asking questions, a claim of status that sounds convenient. He does not hear professionalism in her voice. He hears defiance where none exists. And once that interpretation settles in, everything she says becomes confirmation rather than information. Inside the cruiser, Judge Angela Whitaker sits upright, hands cuffed in front of her now, resting against her knees. Her breathing is slow, deliberate. She understands the mechanics of escalation better than most. She knows that repeating herself too often can be framed as resistance. Silence, in moments like this, can be a form of self-preservation. Outside, the neighborhood has noticed. Across the street, a woman pauses mid-step on her front lawn. She had been tending to her plants when the patrol car pulled in behind the sedan. At first, she assumed it was routine. Then she saw who was standing beside the vehicle. She recognizes Judge Whitaker immediately. This is not a stranger. This is her neighbor. A woman she has seen leave early in the mornings, return late in the evenings. A woman who waves politely, who keeps to herself, who clearly belongs here. The woman watches as the officer places her in handcuffs. Her expression changes. She reaches for her phone. Another resident, walking past with a dog, slows down. He stares longer than curiosity would justify. Something feels wrong. The woman being detained does not match the narrative playing out in front of him. She is calm, controlled, dressed like a professional, not panicked, not aggressive. He steps closer, cautiously. The officer notices. Step back, he commands. The man raises his hands slightly, signaling compliance. Officer, I think there's been a mistake. That's Judge Whitaker. She lives right there. The officer doesn't look at the house, doesn't look at the man. He raises his voice instead. Move away from the scene. The body cam captures the moment clearly. A civilian attempting to clarify. An officer refusing to hear it. Inside the cruiser, Judge Whitaker hears the exchange through muffled sound. She closes her eyes briefly, not in defeat, but in recognition. The pattern is familiar. Once an officer commits to a narrative, contradiction becomes threat. The woman across the street begins recording openly now. Her phone is visible, unhidden. She isn't trying to provoke anything. She's documenting. Cars slow further. The scene expands beyond the two people at its center. This is no longer contained. This is a spectacle. The officer radios for backup. His tone suggests certainty, not caution. He describes the situation as an arrest involving a suspect claiming to be a federal judge. The implication is clear: deception, not error. Inside the patrol car, Judge Whitaker exhales slowly. Backup changes everything. With more officers comes more momentum. More institutional weight behind a decision that has not been questioned once. She knows what comes next. More lights, more uniforms, more witnesses, and fewer opportunities for anyone to quietly admit they were wrong. The first crack has already appeared, but instead of stopping to examine it, the system is doubling down. And that choice will cost them dearly. The first backup unit arrives with lights flashing, red and blue reflections cutting across parked cars, windows, and faces. The quiet suburban street transforms instantly. Doors open. People step onto porches. Phones rise into the air. What was once a single officer's decision is now a public event. A second patrol car follows moments later. 3 officers now stand in a loose triangle near the cruiser, their shadows stretching across the pavement under the harsh midday sun. The original officer speaks first, briefing them quickly, his words clipped and selective. He frames the situation as controlled, necessary, justified, a suspect, a flagged vehicle, a claim of authority that doesn't check out. One of the responding officers listens closely without interrupting. Her eyes move between the patrol car and the detained woman inside. She has been on the force long enough to recognize patterns and inconsistencies. She approaches the cruiser. Through the glass, she sees Judge Angela Whitaker clearly for the first time. Professional attire. Calm posture. Hands resting quietly. No visible agitation. No signs of someone attempting deception or evasion. The judge meets her gaze. "I am Judge Angela Whitaker," she says evenly. "My identification is in my vehicle. Please verify before this goes any further." The officer doesn't dismiss her. She nods once, subtly, then steps away to confer with the others. "Did we run her name?" she asks. The original officer hesitates, just briefly. "She didn't properly identify herself at first," he says. "I'm handling it." The hesitation does not go unnoticed. Around them, witnesses continue recording. One neighbor steps forward, phone still raised, voice steady. "She lives here," the neighbor says. "She's a federal judge. We all know her." The original officer turns sharply. "Step back, or you'll be detained as well." The words escalate the tension instantly. The warning is not about safety, it's about control. The backup officer watches closely now. The dynamic has shifted. She radios dispatch. "Can we run a name check on Angela Whitaker?" she asks. "Possible federal judge." The response takes seconds, but in those seconds, everything changes. The dispatcher comes back clear and unmistakable. The tone is different now. Alert. Careful. Confirmed. Angela Whitaker. Sitting federal judge. The street seems to freeze. The backup officer exhales slowly. She turns toward the original officer, keeping her voice low. She's confirmed. There is a pause. Instead of relief, instead of immediate correction, the original officer stiffens. His shoulders rise. His voice sharpens defensively. "She should have said that earlier," he mutters. "This wouldn't have happened." The body cam records it all. The backup officer does not agree. She moves quickly to the patrol car. The door opens. Sunlight floods the back seat. "Judge Whitaker," she says respectfully, "we're removing the cuffs." Metal clicks open. Red marks circle the judge's wrists. She does not comment. She does not gloat. She simply stands. The street watches as she steps out. Phones capture the moment. Witnesses murmur. The balance of power has shifted, but the damage is already done. The original officer avoids eye contact now. The story he believed no longer holds. And the cameras, the ones he forgot about, have recorded every decision along the way. This encounter is over, but its consequences are just beginning. The patrol cars leave one by one. Lights shut off. Engines fade. The street slowly returns to normal, but the tension lingers, heavy and unresolved. Judge Angela Whitaker stands in her driveway for a moment after everyone else is gone, holding her documents again, steadying herself before walking inside. Neighbors approach quietly. Some apologize. Others offer support. Several promise to share their recordings if she needs them. She thanks them, measured and composed, though the weight of what just happened has not yet fully settled. Inside her home, the silence is sharp. She removes her jacket, sets her bag down, and finally allows herself a moment to breathe. Not relief, clarity. She knows exactly what occurred. She knows exactly what it means. This was not confusion. This was not procedure. This was assumption backed by authority. The next morning, at the police department, the incident is already under review. The original officer sits at a desk typing his report. His language is careful, sanitized. He describes the stop as routine, necessary. He minimizes the objections. He omits the witnesses. He reframes the escalation as compliance issues rather than choice. But one thing he cannot edit is the footage. The body cam, the dash cam, the civilian recordings. They all tell the same story. A supervisor pulls the video and watches silently. No commentary, no interruptions, just footage playing from start to finish. The calm identification, the refusal to verify, the cuffs, the witness warnings ignored, the defensive response even after confirmation. By the end, the room is quiet. The supervisor rewinds certain moments, watches them again, slower this time. Patterns emerge. This is not the first time the officer escalated without cause. It is not the first time he dismissed civilians attempting to correct him. It is not the first time assumptions shaped the outcome. Across town, Judge Whitaker begins documenting everything. Times, statements, officer names, badge numbers, exact phrasing. She does not rush. She prepares. She contacts legal counsel, not as a judge, but as a citizen whose constitutional rights were violated. Word spreads quickly. Within days, Internal Affairs opens a formal investigation. The officer is placed on administrative leave. His prior complaints are reviewed, some dismissed years ago with little explanation, others minimized as misunderstandings. Together, they form a pattern no one can ignore anymore. The department's legal team watches the footage next. Their reaction is immediate. There is no defense strategy that erases what is visible, no explanation that reframes tone, posture, or refusal to verify. This will not be resolved quietly. The city is notified. Insurers are alerted. Every decision from that roadside stop is now a liability with a price tag. And Judge Angela Whitaker, who has spent her career evaluating misconduct from the bench, now sits on the other side of the system, armed with evidence, witnesses, and time. This is the moment when accountability becomes inevitable. The lawsuit is filed quietly, but its impact is anything but. Judge Angela Whitaker's legal team moves with precision. The complaint is direct, tightly constructed, and grounded entirely in evidence. It alleges unlawful detention, false arrest, and violations of constitutional protections that should never depend on who you are or who thinks you don't belong. There is no emotional language, no exaggeration, just facts. And facts are dangerous. Once the filing becomes public, the story spreads rapidly. Local outlets pick it up first. Then regional coverage follows. Soon, national legal analysts are reviewing the footage frame by frame, pointing out moments where the encounter could, and should, have ended. Inside the police department, the investigation deepens. Internal Affairs expands its scope beyond the single incident. They pull 5 years of traffic stop data tied to the officer. Numbers replace anecdotes. Statistics replace explanations. The results are impossible to ignore. Stops involving black drivers occur at a significantly higher rate than demographic data would suggest. Searches are more frequent. Escalations faster. Outcomes harsher, despite no corresponding increase in actual violations or recovered contraband. It is not one bad decision. It is a pattern. Personnel records are reviewed next. Complaints that once seemed isolated now align clearly. Warnings that were once dismissed now read like missed alarms. Supervisory reviews that praise performance never mention repeated concerns raised by citizens. The department's early warning systems, designed to flag exactly this behavior, failed or were ignored. Depositions begin. Under oath, the officer struggles to reconcile his report with the footage. His explanations shift. He insists he felt threatened, then says he was following procedure, then claims confusion. Each answer raises more questions than it resolves. Supervisors are questioned next. Why wasn't the behavior addressed earlier? Why were complaints minimized? Why was no corrective action taken when data showed clear disparities? There are no clean answers. Meanwhile, Judge Whitaker remains mostly silent publicly. When she does speak, her words are measured. "This case isn't about me," she says. "It's about what happens to people without titles, without cameras, without neighbors willing to step forward." That statement changes the tone. What began as a single stop is now a reflection of something larger. Community members begin coming forward with their own experiences, similar stops, similar dismissals, similar outcomes. Their stories echo one another with unsettling consistency. City officials feel the pressure. Meetings are held behind closed doors. Advisors warn of trial risks. Insurance representatives outline worst-case scenarios. Settlements are discussed, then reconsidered, then debated again. The evidence is overwhelming. By the time negotiations begin in earnest, the question is no longer whether the city is liable. The question is how much this failure will cost, and what reforms will be required to ensure it doesn't happen again. Because this case will not end with a check alone. Settlement discussions stretch on for months. Behind closed doors, city attorneys lay out their concerns. The footage is clear. The witness accounts are consistent. The officer's history undermines any claim of isolated error. Every legal projection points in the same direction. If this case reaches a jury, the outcome will be unpredictable and expensive. The city's first offer is conservative. It is rejected immediately. Judge Angela Whitaker's legal team responds with a demand that reflects not just personal harm, but institutional failure. Monetary compensation matters, but reform matters more. Training changes. Oversight mechanisms. Accountability structures that cannot be bypassed when patterns emerge. The city hesitates. Public pressure builds. Civil rights groups release statements. Legal scholars weigh in publicly, describing the case as a clear violation of fundamental protections. Community meetings grow more crowded. Speakers take the floor with stories of similar stops, less visible, less documented, but deeply familiar. Media coverage intensifies. Every replay of the footage reminds viewers that composure did not prevent escalation. Compliance did not prevent handcuffs. Status did not prevent humiliation, until it was verified by someone willing to listen. City leadership faces an impossible choice. Proceed to trial and risk exposing years of internal negligence, or settle and accept responsibility publicly. They choose trial. The courtroom is packed. Jurors watch the footage in silence. Some lean forward. Others cross their arms. No commentary is needed. The story plays itself out frame by frame. Experts testify about constitutional thresholds. Former officers explain proper procedure. Data analysts present charts showing racial disparities that align too perfectly to be coincidence. When Judge Whitaker testifies, she does not dramatize the event. She describes it plainly. The tone she used on the roadside is the same one she uses now. Measured, precise, unavoidable. Deliberations do not take long. The verdict is unanimous. The jury finds in her favor. Damages are awarded, $910,000. Mandatory reforms are ordered alongside the payout. Policy revisions. Independent oversight. Training requirements with measurable accountability. This is not just compensation. It is correction. The officer loses everything connected to the badge. Career, pension, reputation. His name becomes synonymous with a case taught in legal courses as an example of what happens when authority replaces judgment. Judge Whitaker does not celebrate. She establishes a foundation supporting victims of police misconduct, those without cameras, without witnesses, without institutional power. Her response is forward-looking, not punitive. Justice, in this case, is not loud. It is final. The courtroom empties slowly. Reporters gather outside, microphones raised, voices overlapping. The headline is already written in bold type. A federal judge unlawfully detained, a department held accountable, nearly $1 million paid for a roadside decision that never should have happened. Inside the building, the silence feels heavier than the verdict itself. City officials release statements acknowledging failure, carefully worded, legally reviewed. But beneath the language lies an unavoidable truth. This was preventable. The systems designed to stop it simply didn't work. The police department begins its mandated reforms. Policies are rewritten, not as suggestions, but as requirements. Traffic stops now demand verification before escalation. Supervisors are required to review body cam footage more aggressively. Data analysis becomes routine, not optional. Officers flagged for patterns are addressed early or removed. Training changes too. Not just procedural checklists, but scenario-based accountability. Officers are taught that authority without restraint erodes legitimacy. That silence from a citizen does not imply guilt. That professionalism does not negate constitutional protection. Some officers resist the changes. Others quietly admit they are overdue. In the community, trust does not return overnight. It never does. But conversations begin. Forums are held. Oversight boards operate with real authority, not symbolic presence. Transparency replaces silence, slowly, unevenly, but deliberately. Judge Angela Whitaker returns to the bench. Her rulings carry the same clarity they always have. But now, when police misconduct cases appear before her, she listens with an added layer of understanding. Not bias. Perspective. She never references her own case in court. She doesn't need to. The system knows. The officer's story fades from public view, but its consequences ripple outward. Departments across the country review their own practices quietly, hoping to avoid becoming the next example. And the footage, still archived, still shared, remains a reminder. That calm does not guarantee safety. That compliance does not guarantee fairness. That rights only exist when they are respected in practice, not theory. One traffic stop exposed a truth many already knew, but now it had evidence, witnesses, and a verdict attached to it. Justice did not arrive immediately, but when it did, it forced change. And sometimes, that is how progress begins.